Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. I am here to recap Sister Wives season 16. I don't know if this counts as an episode, but if it did, episode 11, one-on-one. This is sort of the tell-all reunion, but not really because we're getting each of the main cast members, Meri, Janelle, Christine, Robin, and Cody, being interviewed separately by a host whose name is Sukanya Krishnan. I'm not familiar with her, but it's fine. She'll do fine. And first of all, I don't feel like there was a lot of meat to this episode. Like, nothing new was really revealed to me. I didn't feel like there was any sort of bombshells or, oh, we didn't know. Like, I just feel like we're just hearing what we've heard all season in their confessionals about how they feel about all these things we're about to get into in this episode. And I feel like, in the past, when they had these tell-all get-togethers, they'd be in a room together, obviously, and whoever was sitting next to who might be sort of telling and where they are in their relationship. And if a topic came up where two of them disagreed on, they could, I don't want to say confront. I'm not looking for a big confrontation, but they could challenge each other and we could see some real dynamics happening. And I feel like in this one-on-one, I mean, I appreciate that they did something because it's been a while, but I don't know that it's like having the same effect as a real reunion would. And I wonder why, now that I'm thinking about it. I'm sure they all had to get tested before they sat down across from the host, because the host is even talking to Janelle one-on-one, like, oh, this kind of feel normal to you? And Janelle says, yeah, this is kind of like old times, like sitting across from somebody. So I don't know why they couldn't all get together. Or I wonder if some of them just refused to do so. That's possible. I don't know. So like I said, there's not a lot of meat to this one-on-one, and I don't know if they're saving it for part 3. I didn't even know there were 3 parts to this when I recapped last episode, and I said, oh, we're gonna get a little one-on-one, okay. And a commenter had mentioned, like, oh girl, this is a 3-parter, so sit tight, buckle up, like it's gonna be a ride. And I'm like, 3 parts? Do we need 3 parts? That's why I hope they're saving like the good stuff, because if it's like 2 more episodes of this, there's not a lot for me to talk about. There's only really one main thing I want to talk about, so I'll save that for the end. So let's get the sort of everything we already know out of the way. Now, it seems that they're going to cover last season and this season, 15 and 16, because the way this one-on-one reunion, tell-all, whatever you want to call it's going to work is they're going to show each cast member sort of a scene or a montage of something, and then they react to it. So they all have to, we all see them sitting there watching it, and then the host will ask questions. So the first topic up is last season 15, the first episode, pre-panorama, when Janelle got everybody together for lunch to go over why it seems like the family's sort of suffering, the dynamic, why did we believe in the principle of polygamy if we're not going to put work into it? The whole, she went around asking the table, how do you feel about the family dynamic? Do you feel it's changed? And pretty much the consensus among everybody was yes, the family dynamic, it's really not much there these days, at least since they got to Flagstaff. Cody says that when they lived in Las Vegas and they lived closer to each other, it was easier to get together and see each other. But any problems and issues they had, all of them would just sweep under the rug and not deal with it, because it made it easier, less awkward and uncomfortable when these get-togethers happened. But when they moved to Flagstaff, they didn't even have to sweep anything under the rug. They just didn't have to see each other or deal with each other, and that made things easier. And Christine says that when they were in Flagstaff, they really weren't getting together, that it took like a month for them to coordinate a gathering. And this was pre-panorama. So it sounds like the family was already sort of hanging on by a thread, barely keeping it together. And then COVID just blew everything up, really. And so I think the host asks Robin, is this COVID that kind of wrecked the family or not COVID? And Robin says it's both. Things were under the rug already, and COVID just sort of ripped the rug open, and this is where we are now. Okay, then we get to topic number 2, Christine sharing at that table that she felt disliked by everybody. that she was walking into hostile environments when they were getting together with each other. And Robin and Janelle and Meri and I guess Cody too were all surprised that she felt that way. Robin says she just wanted to reassure Christine that she didn't dislike her. She didn't have a problem with her. The host asked Meri if she could relate to Christine's feelings because it seems like Meri has really been on the outs with the family as a whole for a while. And Mary's like, yeah, sure. I could totally identify. I've been there. And so then the host says, well, did you reach out to Christine to sort of bond with her over this shared, feeling of being on the outside and left out? And Meri says, yeah, I reached out. Did she really? I mean, I guess it doesn't matter now. I don't know. And Christine says that's absolutely how she felt at the time. 100%. That was her being truthful. And she just felt that she needed to be honest in her feelings because she realized how difficult it was for Janelle to bring the family together and be so open and trying to get them to communicate. It wasn't easy. So she just felt she owed honesty to the group. I mean, they all should be honest with each other, but safe conversations. Anyway, so then the next topic up is the COVID rules, Cody's COVID rules. Cody says that at the beginning of the whole panorama, when he talked to his doctors and he was getting information, his main concern was keeping the family alive, making sure that nobody died. And looking back, was he a little too strict? Maybe, but he didn't know that then. He was just doing what he thought was best with what he knew. And he had, he says, one wife who was Robin, totally compliant with the rules. Another wife who was mostly compliant with the rules but had kids who weren't compliant. That would be Janelle. And then he had another wife, Christine, who just did what she wanted to do, did not care about these rules at all. And he didn't even mention Meri because, she's, like we said last week, a non-mother effing factor. So that's where they all were. He could see where Christine was coming from, but yeah, he was just doing what he thought was best for the family as a whole. Christine says that Cody's rules just weren't realistic for her, that she had other kids living in other states that needed her. And so when they called and said, hey, Mom, I need you, she wasn't not going to go. So she did follow all the CDC rules, all the guidelines. She was very careful. Anytime they traveled, they quarantined themselves. She kept Cody very aware of everything that was going on, and that's just was what it was. Then we get Robin getting very emotional. I think we're going to have a lot of these sort of crying breakdowns throughout these one-on-ones. And she says she saw both sides. She saw Cody's side, she saw Christine's side, and she just can't understand why they just couldn't, these two, they just couldn't be meshed and there couldn't be a compromise. Yeah, why couldn't they, Robin? Because I feel like if anybody could have facilitated a compromise, it would have been Robin to have done that. Now, I think that the Cody rules really were Robin's rules, but I don't think it was as black and white as Robin having written them down, because I don't think they were ever written down. But I think when the whole panorama started, I think this is this list were the things she was doing on her own in her household. And I think because Cody spent the most time there, he just kind of took them on as his own rules. And I think in his mind, he believes that they're his. I think he just kind of followed her lead. Like, if this is what she's doing, then it's good enough for me. And if this is how she wants to run it, let's try to get everybody to run it. I don't think it was conscious. I don't think the way they see it is that, I don't think they see it, Robin and Cody, as Robin's rules. I think Robin was fine to let Cody call them her rules, but they were really, I think, just the way she was running her house. Because we know the moms each run the house the way they see fit and the way they want to. They're the moms, they're the ones in charge. For as much as Cody says he wants to be the leader, he's really not in these houses, not even Robin's. And I think that, all scapegoating, favorite wife aside, Robin does have influence on Cody. Robin does have his ears, and I think the wives are very well aware of that, and that's why they were kind of sort of trying to defer to her, and that's why Cody was all, I'm the head of the house, why are you looking at Robin? Well, because we know that Robin, she has an influence over him, and to me, I think back on that gathering they had at Coyote Pass for hunters going away, and to me, like that was a compromise, and even Robin was uncomfortable with that. They had separate fire pits for each family. They had to distance. He went to Robin asking, "Can Solomon and the boss baby go?" And she was, I don't know. And he asked, "Can Meri, can she be helpful with the boss baby? Because she's been quarantined. She's been away from everybody. She doesn't see anybody." And Robin was like, "Oh, I don't know." Yeah, she wasn't really comfortable with that get together. I think she had to though because of the film crew, or else I wonder if she really would have went. They were all compromising. And I ultimately did, but I think very begrudgingly. I don't think she was comfortable doing that. And everybody maintained their distance. The kids, the older kids, they toed the line, what the rules were. You saw Cody there. Zero F's given. He was making s'mores and hanging out. He wasn't paying attention to distancing. He wasn't keeping this, eye on the baby when she was running around. And because it really, like I'm saying, I don't think it's Cody. That's not like his instinct to be that way, the way Robin is. Do you guys know what I'm trying to say? And so why she's sitting here acting like, I don't know why we couldn't compromise. Like, compromises were trying to be made, and even she was sort of uncomfortable with it. Does that make sense? Like, I mean, I just don't know what else to say. I think deep down, these were her rules. This is how she wanted things to go. She was uncomfortable getting together. Even Meri, who had been quarantining, who's her best BFF sister wife, even she didn't really want her around, even though Cody said, you can bring her around. Like, Robin, why couldn't we mesh and compromise more? I think it's because she just didn't, not that she didn't want to, she just didn't feel comfortable. People had different levels of comfort when it came to getting together and rules, and she was just one of those ones who just was highly, highly cautious, and that's fine. That's fine. I get it. I understand, but let's not pretend it is what it isn't, okay? So that was the whole COVID talk. Then the topic of loneliness comes up, and really, it's Christine saying, thank God she had her daughters with her in the house during that time because she really would have been alone. And you have Meri saying that she was totally by herself. Had she caught the virus, she would have been home alone taking care of herself, and nobody would have been there for her. And Janelle sees that clip and says that that's hurtful because, for all the problems she might have with Meri, she could be there for Meri. And Meri, if ever Meri did get sick, she could call on Janelle, and Janelle would be there for her. And so it kind of bothers Janelle that Meri feels that way, but that's just like the dynamics of their relationships. And really, it should be Cody who's there for Meri because he technically is her husband, right? Even if they're not in a full marriage, he's a friend to her, and you would want to take care of your friend who's sick. But we all know Cody, he wouldn't have gone and helped out Meri if she gotten sick. I don't believe that at all. So now we're going to get into the main issue here, because the last topic we have to talk about is Cody and Meri and the state of their non-union. And I have a lot of thoughts, so let's get into it. Now we get to the part of the episode where Meri tries to rewrite history yet again, which is so frustrating, and it's what's always bothered me about Meri, but I'm getting a little ahead of myself. So the segment opens with, we get a flashback of last season, 15, where we saw Cody and Meri get together. I would hardly call it a celebration for their 30th anniversary. And if you want to know my thoughts on that specific episode, I didn't recap the season. At the time, I was recapping Seeking Sister Wives, and in one of my reviews of that show at the very end, because I just had to get it off my chest, there was nowhere else for me to share my thoughts. It's like a 5-minute little rant on that anniversary episode. I'll link it below if you're so inclined and curious of my thoughts on that. But we get a flashback of that episode. They're driving in the car, and Meri's saying, I'm waiting for you to come back. And Cody tells her, I'm not coming back. And she says, well, yeah, I can see that. And then we get the host asking Cody, okay, so let's talk about your marriage with Meri. And he says, there's nothing to talk about. And I was like, oh, that's way harsh, Ty. But he says, this is the deal. it took a lot of therapy and couples counseling with Meri to realize that there was a lot of hardness in their marriage, a lot of antagonism, and he just doesn't ever want to be in that place again. And so he doesn't want to risk rekindling a full marriage with Meri if there's a possibility of those negative things coming into his life and that they're just better off friends. But he can't spiritually really divorce her because there is a double standard in their religion that a wife can leave but a husband cannot. And this is where the host says, okay, well, but you've emotionally abandoned these women. And this is where Cody takes issue and says, oh, emotionally abandoned, please, like take that word back, take it back. And I'm like, oh, Cody, like acting like such a kid, like you can't say that to me. Anyway, here's where I do agree with Cody, because I think what the viewers forget sometimes, because Meri won't acknowledge and because Cody 99% of the time can be a jerk and is the problem, that in this instance with Meri and the catfish, she plays a big part, but she's rewritten it in a way that it just kind of, it's because Cody emotionally abandoned her, which he did, but she also looked outside of the marriage, and he says that Meri had an affair. And she did. She had an emotional affair. And I will argue sometimes that could be more hurtful and detrimental than a physical affair, because, hey, it wasn't just like meaningless sex. Like, this guy got into Meri's head and heart. And so essentially he's saying that Meri abandoned him first, and that maybe we don't really remember it that way, or we don't see it that way, because at the time the family, they circled the wagons, they rallied around Meri to protect her and shield her as much as they could from that whole catfish fallout. And so I actually went back after this episode because I wanted to like not have whole rewatches of those episodes, because those episodes like 2 hours long, ain't nobody got time for that, but just segments. Because the host asks Meri, have you and Cody ever had a real conversation about the whole catfish situation? And Meri says, yeah, I thought we had. And I know they have. We watched them have those conversations ad nauseum. And the host says, well, Cody, he believes that you were gonna leave him. And Meri says, I was never gonna leave Cody. That was never gonna happen. Like, was I in a dark place? Yes. Had I thought that I made a real friend? Yes. But it wasn't like, hey, I'm gonna meet some dude, fall in love, and run off. But that's exactly what she was doing. In my heart, I believe that if that Sam catfish person had turned out to be real and who she thought he was, she would have left him. And I think that's what bothers Cody, is that he was kind of rejected and replaced. He says that she was going to leave his ass for, what did he say? A richer, better man. And I could tag on younger and hotter, but he would never say that. And so when I went back to watch those few segments when they talked about the catfish, because I think it was easy, or it has been easy for Meri to sort of rewrite what happened. Because when you watch that first episode where we learned the catfish, the family's having a vacation in Alaska, and it was edited, I feel like it was out of order. She was having this conversation with the adults, Cody and the other wives, over dinner, and it was cut with her having a one-on-one confessional with the producer where she was really kind of breaking down the experience with the catfish. And you can't tell me that she wasn't gonna leave and run off with this guy to see what was up, at least. Like, maybe she wasn't ready to leave Cody for good, but she was gonna go find out what was up with this dude, because in her confessional, she was very emotional, she was crying, she was upset. And at the dinner, she was more contained. She was more just blasé, like, I don't know. Because I feel like at the dinner, where she was in the catfish was that she was going to go off to see if, like, it was a thing, like, could really happen. Because she's sitting there talking with Cody and the other wives, saying, oh, you all know I've been in a weird place. I don't know where I fit in the family. I've been struggling. I don't know what to do with myself. Don't be surprised if you wake up one day and you see that I'm gone. And you had Cody, Janelle, and Christine totally confused, had no idea what she was talking about. because you had Janelle saying, okay, if you need to leave, will you be back for the holidays? Because it would be really upsetting to the kids if you weren't there. You had Christine saying, okay, what can we do for you? How can we help? What do you need? Cody didn't, it was mom's the word. He didn't speak anything. And I forgot, or I just didn't remember Robin's reaction was she was telling Meri, okay, well, if you have to go and you have to leave, we won't bother you or anything, but can you just call us and let us know you're okay? And even in one of her confessionals, Robin said that if Meri doesn't want this anymore, plural marriage and family, that's fine. She can leave. I just want her to know that we'll miss her and we love her. And I'm just like, what's going on? What? Because Cody had said to the host that when Meri was going to leave his ass, she told other people. Other people knew. And I'm wondering, at this point, did Robin know? Because Robin seemed really just resolved to the fact that Meri was leaving. She wasn't fighting it. She wasn't crying about it. And I mean, just early in this episode, we saw Robin break down. The family just threw their values out the window and they couldn't make it work and they couldn't figure it out. But here in this episode, she's just like, okay, Meri, just, give us a call. Let us know you're still alive. Like, what? And that's the thing. I feel like there's a lot we don't know because we weren't there, and there's a lot that other family members saw and a lot that Meri shared. And so at this dinner, though, she is saying, I don't know if I need to just go off and go camping alone by myself for a week. And for me, I took that as that was her cover. She wanted to go off, meet this guy, not be interrupted, not get text messages, not be reminded that she had this family at home, and it was a good cover that I'm going to be out in the woods, unreachable. And this is why, because I'm trying to figure myself out. Oh, she was trying to figure some shit out for sure. But when you go into her confessional and she's saying, I was really isolated, I was alone, I was lonely, I was empty nesting by myself, Cody wasn't around, he's now raising new baby kids, the wives are busy with their lives, I didn't have anybody, I went online, I started making friends, I met this one person, this guy, and we just hit it off. We had a lot in common. He was really funny. We were laughing. It was just like I had company and a friend. And then this person started telling me that he was having feelings of love for me and attraction for me, and he was making me feel feelings of love. But she was confused because she's married and she doesn't want to cheat on her husband. But the producer asks, did you want to meet this person? And she says, yeah, I was open to meeting this person, but at some point she realizes it's not real. And I think in this interview is probably the most honest we'll get of Meri regarding the catfish. I think because it was so recent, she was so raw, and I think she was disappointed that this person wasn't who she thought they were, because I agree with Cody. She was gonna leave. You can't, I don't have any proof. I don't know. That's just how I feel. But the way they edited this episode, the way they were framing it was that now Meri had gotten to a place where she was concerned because she discovered, she says when they ask, how did you find out? She says, oh, this person just kept making excuses of not wanting to meet up, and she just kind of saw red flags and put two and two together and realized that this person wasn't who they said they were. And now she was concerned that he was kind of stalking her now, or it wasn't even a he, it turns out to be a woman, and she's not sure if the house is bugged and what's going on. And so now the way they frame this episode and this dinner she's having is this is her trying to protect the family. She's got to run away because she doesn't know what she brought into the family and they have no idea. And what I think she meant really was what she brought into the family was a lot of scrutiny, a lot of judgment, a lot of people saying, see, polygamy doesn't work. See, Cody ain't the husband you all make him out to be. And that's the fallout I think she was most worried and upset about and crying over. And cut to, okay, next season, first episode, the catfish is out of the bag. She's told everybody. They invite therapist Nancy over so that all the family can talk. And this is what I think Cody's talking about when the family rallied around her to protect her. Because I don't know what the conversations were, if it was deliberate or Meri just kind of found a comfortable, safe place to start her spin on this. Because when they sit down with Meri, you can see there's sort of these openings that the others create for her to explain away that this wasn't really a love affair cheating situation. Because at one point, Meri's telling them, I was lonely, I made a friend, I got caught up, and Janelle creates this opening where she says, okay, Meri, you made this friend and all, and that's fine. But when this person got to the point of telling you, I love you and I have feelings, you were like, ew, no, no love, right? Which would have been a great opportunity for Meri to be like, yeah, no, I didn't feel love. But instead, Meri, in an honest moment, says, no, I was flattered. I'm sorry, I was flattered. And Janelle's like, okay, yeah, that's fine. Like, yeah, anybody would be. And because she has this idea that she's being stalked and the house is being bugged, and maybe there's truth to that, I don't know. But Cody is now saying, oh, were you pushing me away? Were you shutting me out? Were you telling me not to come around because you thought the house was bugged? Like, is that why? No, she was shutting you out because she was done with you. Yeah, in that moment, she was ready to move on to a new relationship. But this is the family sort of planting these seeds of ideas, and really they're taking it on as like a family problem. This is our fault. We let this happen. This isn't just an issue between Meri and Cody and their marriage and somebody that got into her head and her heart. This is it's our fault. We saw her pulling away. We saw her not involving herself. She wasn't coming to family functions. She was always on her phone. We should have reached out to her. We should have been there for her more. So now it's, because I think they were trying to protect the brand of the show and their family, that they all love each other, that Cody's the perfect husband, that for all intents and purposes, the sister wives, they get along, and so they shielded her from that, from taking the hit of just being branded the cheating, adulterous wife. Maybe that's a little dramatic, but that's what happened. And I think that's why Cody today is annoyed that he gets all of the blame for Meri being abandoned when really she did play a big part in it. And I just wish she would admit it, though, because I think most everybody's opinion is we don't blame her for having fallen into this trap. I'm not trying to condone having an affair and cheating, but it happens. It's all the talk now. Cody cutting his wife off sexually, and what are you supposed to do with that if you're a woman who still has needs and you're telling me you're not going to give it to me anymore? Well, then I'm going to have to find it somewhere else. And I think Christine made the right choice in leaving, because she knows herself well enough to know I can't live the rest of my life without having intimate emotional connections with somebody. Her love language is clearly physical touch. And when the host asks Meri, hey, what do you think about Christine leaving? You guys are pretty much in the same predicament, having non-full marriages and intimacy with Cody. And Meri says she can't really answer for Christine. They just have different values. And I don't know that that's really fair, but whatever. So the family rallies around Meri, and then cut to later on in the season. Okay, Mariah's pissed with Meri because, like I mentioned, the family, they know more about what's going on, and Mariah was actually witness to this emotional, verbal affair, whatever you want to call it, and she doesn't want to talk to Meri. She's upset with Meri. She's angry, and so Cody's concerned, and I think still in an effort to sort of, protect Meri, he's actually, and I don't know if it's sincere or not, if this is just sort of their damage control, he is actually taking culpability. He wants to go to Mariah to have a conversation, to tell her, hey, kind of let up on your mom. It's not so bad. You're giving her the blues. And so he goes to visit Mariah at college and have a conversation. And what he's telling her, okay, so this catfish thing, it's not that bad of a thing. And Mariah's like, no. And what I'll say for Mariah is, I think back then, she thought more black and white, and I feel like she's grown and matured a lot. You get older, she's gone to college, she's lived away from home, she's found her true self. I don't think she would be, as, it was just very, she'd no room to try to understand where her mom was coming from. But that's fair, because Meri dragged Mariah into this. And so Mariah tells Cody, I spent a long, miserable summer trying to convince my mother that she was being catfished. I warned her and she wouldn't hear it. She wouldn't listen to me. In fact, she wanted me to talk to this person, get to know them and like them. And that is messed up, because you're kind of dragging your child into an affair with another person, and they have a dad, and that's real messy. And so I don't blame Mariah for having felt that way at that time. And Cody's saying, oh, it was just, it was an infatuation, it was fleeting, and she wasn't really gonna leave me. You don't think your mom was gonna leave me? And Mariah's like, if this guy had been real, yeah, she would have left you. And I think, you know, it's more than what she's saying it is. She had feelings for this person, Dad. And Cody says, well, yeah, she's admitted she'd had feelings. And Mariah says, well, she hasn't admitted it to me. She is still trying to convince me that it's just a friendship, and I know that it was more than that. And Mariah just, I don't think, appreciated kind of another word I hate, gaslit, but I think it's actually really appropriate in this situation. Mariah saw what happened, and Meri was telling her, no, that's not what happened. Mariah saw that her mom was getting involved emotionally with somebody and that it was more than a friendship, and Meri's telling her, no, it was just friendship. So that's understandable why Mariah felt so strongly the way she did, because it's also, you know, insulting to me as the viewer. I think that's why I'm so annoyed by it, because cut to the next season, Meri goes over to tell Cody and Robin, hey, guess what? I met this woman named Cheryl. She lives in Atlanta. I'm gonna go out and visit her because she's another one of Sam the Catfish's, not a victim, because Robin says, what, victim? And Meri says, don't say that. Don't use that word. We are not victims. Marks? I don't know. I don't know. Just another person she catfished. And Cody's like, if you have to go, fine, but is it necessary? Because I think he was saying the more we talk about it, the more we put attention on it, it keeps it going, and he just really wants to put this to bed and move on and move past it, and she won't let it go. Why? Because she's really still trying to rewrite what really happened. So she goes to meet Cheryl out in Atlanta, and now this is the new story, everybody. Sam the catfish, yeah, she went online to make friends and she met the catfish and they were just friends. It was just a friendship, everybody. In fact, she wanted to introduce Sam to Cody. She wanted the catfish to be the new family friend, and also it was just business. Sam just wanted to be like an investor in the family businesses and get involved, and he asked Meri to send over all the financial documents, and the dumb Meri actually did that because he's going to be our new business partner, and because he's going to be our new business partner, well, of course I want to meet this person, but he kept making excuses and excuses and excuses, and they couldn't get together, and finally they had this trip planned to go to California, and guess what? Last minute he can't make it, but instead he sent his homegirl Lindsay in his place, and she actually met with this person. And this is where I'm thinking, you know what, if it had been me and I met somebody online on a dating app or what have you, and we hit it off and I felt a connection, but he just wouldn't agree to meet up with me or FaceTime with me, I mean, I would have cut it off a lot sooner. But if there came a point where we had planned to meet up and he said, just kidding, I'm gonna send my friend, I'd be like, you know, I'm good. I don't need to meet your friend if I haven't even met you. I think I'm good. I think I'm done at this point. But what this tells me is that Meri agreed to meet Lindsay, is that Meri was willing to do anything to get to Sam, the catfish. If I have to meet your friend first in order to meet you, she was down to do it. That's why it's like, miss me with the bullshit. He was just a friend. You say he's just a friend. No, it's fine. Just admit. We know you did it. Just admit it. You can say, hey, I was lonely. Cody wasn't around. I felt ignored. This person found me. He was making me feel good. He was sexy. He made me feel sexy. Hey, we all saw the pictures, the text messages, the leaked voicemails, which is terrible. I feel bad that that happened to her. And I think she was maybe taken advantage of and preyed upon. And those are words the family used, by the way, in describing this. You know, this person was just like looking at, you know, to come in and wreck. Anyway, do you know what I'm trying to say? If she would just admit what it was, we would be okay with it and we would understand. And that's for Cody to forgive. But of course, he's not going to forgive her, because I think Cody, I mean, all men have egos, but Cody's is real sensitive. And I don't think he'll ever get over that she found somebody else more desirable, better, richer, what have you. I don't, and they both said that the catfish wasn't like the beginning of the end, that they'd been having problems for a while. They hadn't been intimate for a long time before that. That was just sort of the breaking point. And I think Cody likes that he has that card to play against Meri, but I think had they been in a monogamous relationship, it could have been worked out. I mean, or they could have divorced. And that's what Cody says. Had they been in a monogamous relationship, things would look very different. I don't know if that means they'd really be divorced, probably, because I just don't think he is truly in his heart interested in her anymore. I don't think it's just the catfish. I think that gave him the excuse he needed to make to why he doesn't trust her anymore and why he doesn't feel safe with her and why he can't be conjugal with her anymore is because she broke that trust. And yeah, trust was broken, but uh, I think it could have been repaired. Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. But all this to say, and I'm sorry I'm getting rambling, I'm just trying to create a timeline and present a case here. This is why I don't feel sorry for Meri. I sound like a broken record, but I've always say I think Meri is there with Cody for the show, for the money, for the platform, for the exposure. I think she leans into that character of the long-suffering wife who someday hopes to get back together with Cody. Like, I don't think she really believes that. I get that you've been with this person for 31 years and it's hard to like let that go, but he has let it go. And he's saying that now the best he can do is offer her friendship, build her a house on the land because she's still part of the family as a whole. And that's about as much as he can do. And the host says, is that enough for somebody? He says it's not enough for anybody, but people make their choices. And yeah, Meri's made her choice, and that's why I don't feel bad for her. I don't. And I think if she would just admit to it, I feel like I'm repeating myself, we would get it, and we know it, and it doesn't, but it really doesn't even matter anymore. And side note, when Cody said that his religion won't allow him to leave or spiritually divorce a wife, not even on the grounds of an affair or cheating. I mean, I don't know, maybe because it wasn't physical in their religion, it doesn't count. But to me, it counts. Like, it's fair if he said, honestly, truly, I don't trust her. She broke that vow. I don't want to be married to her. That's not grounds for a divorce, because the idea is that they're all going to go to heaven and spend eternity together. So you want to spend eternity with this person you think is hard and antagonistic? Like, it just doesn't make sense to me. I don't know. Maybe do you know what I'm trying to say? I think I'm rambling. It's just, that was the episode. It's just not a lot happened, but I've been wanting to talk about this for a long time because I've watched episodes about the catfish over the years, and it always bothered me that she tried to rewrite it, but I think it's like the family started it and she ran with it, if that makes sense. So you guys let me know what you think. Do you like these one-on-ones, or do you prefer like an old reunion? I kind of would prefer an old type of reunion, but the more I think about it, the more I'm starting to feel like I just think certain people weren't ready to be around each other. I don't know, are Cody and Christine getting together at all, like with Truly? I mean, they must be, so I don't know. Maybe they're just not ready to really have those confrontational discussions. But you let me know what you think. I'm sorry if this is all over the place. Rate, comment, subscribe, and I hope these episodes get better, because if there are two more of just like nothingness, I don't know. I'm gonna have to come up with another topic to give you guys. All right, I'll see you later. Bye.